Dear all, now I would like to welcome and introduce our keynote speaker for today. We had the pleasure of meeting her through our studies at the Masters of Global Health, and she instantly inspired us by her first-hand experiences and advice, her unique story, her humor, and her charisma. When organizing the scientific program of this seminar, her name came up to us immediately. Trained in Calcutta University, Johns Hopkins University, and University of Leuven, she has a PhD in epidemiology. She has been involved in field research and training in humanitarian aid issues with various organizations all around the world. Being a founding member of the EMDAT, International Reference Database on Natural Disasters, the main focus of her research is the human impact of disasters and conflicts using epidemiological methods. Please welcome on the stage now, Professor Debarati Guasapir, who I believe is the perfect keynote speaker for us today.
So, thank you very much, first of all, for having invited me. It sounds like a banal thing to say, you know, that I'm very honored, but I actually am honored. I really am, because this is a path-breaking step in Belgium. I'm not going to say Europe, because it's not a path-breaking step in Europe, but it is a path-breaking step in Belgium. And that it will stay in the evolution of global health training in this country for the future, because it was the first to go forward, move forward. There will be others that follow. So congratulations to all of you and the management to have started this process. I also want to congratulate the organizing committee for this event. I must say that I've lived a long time, so I've seen many conferences, and many of them I have organized myself. So I have been impressed by the level of efficiency and professionalism by which this conference was organized. It has been enormously helpful to me. They have given me all the information I need. The whole thing was organized really well. And I think this is a remarkable effort. So all in all, it's a pleasure for me to be here and to see all of you. So I got pretty clear marching orders from Sarah and Martens, and there was a third person, I can't remember his or her name, but I was thinking, you know, last few days, what am I going to say? You know, all of these people already have very good training. What am I going to tell them that's going to be new? And then I received a mail, I think a couple of days ago, saying, well, thank you very much for coming. Here's what we want you to speak about. And there was a little list, like a little shopping list of, not only was there a little shopping list, you know, like A, B, and C on the points that I have to address. And then the person went further and gave me a little kind of a postscriptum, a nota bene, about what is meant by multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary. This was explained to me in the postscript. Now, this was extremely helpful. It was seriously helpful because there is, even in my head, a confusion about interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, and multidisciplinary. So this was explained to me, and I don't know whether this has been shared with the rest of the audience, but it's worthwhile looking at it because it is important. Why is it important? Because transdisciplinary is something that actually is bigger than multi or inter. And although these terms are used kind of interchangeably, multidisciplinary, as the organizing committee pointed out, is in fact simply an additive process, right? So it just adds the disciplines together and you go on and do your thing. Interdisciplinary goes a little further and links up these different disciplines. And transdisciplinary, as was defined by the organizing committee, was a little more difficult for me to understand. I have a very simple mind. I've discovered over years that my thinking is rather simple, and which means that I can't capture very well, rather big ideas. And this one actually said specifically, transdisciplinary is collaborative deconstruction, right? Collaborative deconstruction. It's an interesting term because I thought about it, and what it probably means is that you unpack ideas together. You unpack ideas, you unpack the different ways an event is affected by different disciplinary approaches. You unpack it, but you do it together, collaborative deconstruction. And the other keyword was coherence, which meant the whole thing has to hold together. This is an important concept because it is, as I think somebody in the previous speakers, one of the previous speakers, could have even been Olivier, said that it's not an easy process at all that I have found over my career. Interdisciplinary became very flavor of the month about, I would say, 15, 20 years ago, maybe a little more. 15, interdisciplinary. All of us had to be interdisciplinary. And the calls for research had to be interdisciplinary. But then I found myself in a very sort of happy and troublesome, both happy and troublesome condition, context, where there was a grant that I received from the European Commission. It was a very big grant. For me, it was a very big grant. It was, I don't know, at that time, and this we are talking of what, maybe 15 years ago, it was 5 million euros. This is a lot of money. By any standards, it's a lot of money. 5 million euros. And this was supposed to be an interdisciplinary project. And that was the basis on which it was given. It was a project called MicroDis. Now, this project had interdisciplinary project, many partners. It had socioeconomic component. It had it had social, health, and economics, right? Three projects. So what did we do? We brought, partners, 3 partners from economics and 3 partners from social sciences, I suppose, social sciences, and 3 or 4 partners from epidemiology. This project was an eye-opener for me. It was a 5-year-long project. It was an eye-opener. The meetings we had, the first 3 years of this project, 5-year project, first 3 years of the project were absolutely catastrophic. Catastrophic for me. It was maybe less catastrophic for the people who were participating, I don't know, but it was catastrophic for me. Why? Because I couldn't actually at that time. It was partly my age also. I didn't have enough maturity, but partly it was I couldn't manage to bring the economists, the social guys, and the epidemiologists, not even to speak the same language. That I think would have been too much for me to do, not even speak the same language, but even have sufficient professional respect. Have sufficient professional respect. I say that it sounds a bit harsh, and it is a bit harsh, but what happens is we are very much in our silos. In the areas that we've been brought up, we've learned this is what we do. These are the sociological concerns, and you have to do focus group meetings and ask the women what they want, or whatever, this kind of thing. And the economists will have. We are brought up in those silos, and somehow it has improved. I will come to that later. It has improved. But somehow when we listen to other people from other disciplines, it's very difficult. That is the truth. It is very difficult for us to get out of our silos and say, well, yeah, maybe what they're saying makes sense. Maybe we should think about this a bit. And maybe very hard to do. Which meant what? Which meant that every evening in my hotel room, we were in Delhi at that time, we were in a guest house of the University of Delhi. In my room, after the dinner, there would be people streaming in, hanging out in the veranda to see me one by one, to complain about everybody else. So they would knock on my door and say, can I see you for a minute, Debbie? Can I say, come in? And they would then say, oh, but these people, they don't understand systemic thinking. They're only thinking of individuals. This is not going to work. You have to do something tomorrow. You have to tell them to shut up. And I was like, and the next person would say the opposite. So there was this tremendous amount of antipathy, not because they were personally antipathic people, but because it's very hard to see things from somebody else's point of view and to be able to say that, yeah, well, this person is suggesting something completely different. Maybe, something in medicine, in vaccination strategy, completely different. They're not even taking into account what the women want. Well, maybe it's worth thinking about what they're saying. Maybe there is a reason for that. So that's the first lesson I learned, is there has to be a build-up of respect between disciplines to be able to say that the anthropologists, the economists, the medics, they all may have a reason and it's worth listening to them. So respect. The next question that I was, the next item that I was instructed to say something on was about the expansion of transdisciplinarity in epidemiology and disasters. This is a relatively easy question at the base, because both epidemiology is an extremely it's a field that allows very easily a multidisciplinarity. If your mind is open, if the epidemiologists have an open mind, it's an easy field to open up to other disciplines, to social disciplines, economics, and so on and so forth. So epidemiology is not really a big issue. Disasters or humanitarian aid equally is an area where transdisciplinarity plays a very big role by definition. When you arrive at some kind of an acute emergency setting, whether it is a natural disaster like the earthquake in Haiti, or it is a civil conflict situation like in Yemen, where things have been, rotting for years and years and years, where either one or the other, very soon one finds that you cannot deal with the problems if you're unable to talk to the social workers, to the nursing cadres, to the police people, to the legal people. If you don't talk to them, you cannot do anything. You will be paralyzed. Nothing will move, nothing will move. I remember in Haiti when I was there it wasn't right after the earthquake, but it was sometime after that, not this one, the one previous to that. The first 2 or 3 days, people learn fast also, fortunately, human beings are fast learners. In the first 2 or 3 days, they had this huge Southern Command, the US Army Southern Command, which is based out of Florida, had sent in this huge tertiary care hospital ship. This is like, my hospital, Saint-Luc, on a boat, right? So this is what they sent. They could send that, 3 floors and everything, all operation theaters and everything. And they started, it had to be parked, berthed quite a bit far away from the coast, because it couldn't come in there was no port. And they helicoptered the wounded to this ship, and they operated and they helicoptered them back. This is what they did for the first, because they were medics, they were orthopedic surgeons. That is what they could do. That is what they could do. That's the skill they come with. And they've come with that skill. They're going to help these people come hell or high water. So that's what they did. Operation after operation after operation. The people were brought in, the injured people were brought in, operated, sent out, brought in, sent out. Then after about 48 hours or a little more, they discovered that because they had not discussed at all with the, I'm sorry for this imaging, but essentially this is what I saw when I came to what they call the base camp, which was the airport. Because they did not at all discuss or did not think it worth discussing with the bearded young men with Birkenstocks who was standing there, helping the people with their food distribution. They never discussed anything with the social service sector, nothing. Which meant that, these were, as I said, top class skilled surgeons coming in. So as a result, what happened was when they brought these patients in, operated them, sent them out, they hadn't thought that on the other side, if you don't have the social services waiting to, pick up these patients actually have nowhere to go, home. There was no home. There was nothing. The whole of Port-au-Prince was crushed. These guys had no home, so they had nowhere to go. So they were actually piling up on the, on the land side because they had nowhere to go. Now, this was simply a very, very good example of a bridging, where the medical corps, the highly skilled medical corps, without whom, none of these guys would have been saved, or did not make a bridge to the social services to make sure that there was a follow-up. It was an eye-opener for me to see how, you really need to have all these components built in. And that's, in a sense, a good example of transdisciplinary approach, not research, but approach. The third point that was raised by the organizing committee is, how does one expand transdisciplinarity? What are the ways forward in academia and policy? How do we do better? And this is a very important question, because I made my whole career in academics, right? So, I did everything in academics. And the truth is, academia today, the universities today, are not really set up for transdisciplinarity, and I may be shot down by my colleagues in other professors and things who think that, we are doing very well. We have done much better. Why have we done much better, the universities? Because we have created something, an instrument which is rather powerful. And that's the concept of centers. Centers in universities help bridge this gap. But essentially, careers of people in academics, if you want to make an academic career, it's, at the end of the day, you have to publish in your area of work, in the journals of your discipline, and you have to be in conferences of your discipline. This is what counts. If you run around and go and start doing work with the ethics guys and publish in philosophy journals, not clear to me that the system, our system, is able to take that into account in your promotions and your academic career. So what I'm saying is that our universities have not evolved enough. They are moving in the right direction with these centers, which help to bridge. But for academic careers, for postdocs, academic careers, I think there is a long way to go still. There's a long way to go. Transdisciplinarity has also, transdisciplinarity also has another big weakness. And that is one of the reasons why maybe there is a reticence of the academic community, of the scientific community, to push this through. What happens when you have different disciplinary approaches come together? I'm not saying always, but quite frequently, I find, which annoys me a bit, and I pull out of this this whole transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary thing, is because you end up very often going to the lowest common denominator. Because if you want to be able to work together with anthropologists and, highly skilled surgeons and ethicists and macroeconomists, and you have all of them, to be able to have a common platform, the whole thing gets dumbed down to come to a common ground. This does happen. And that is one of the biggest weaknesses of transdisciplinarity. And it's the biggest challenges. It's not an easy step to overcome. It means that when I'm sure that there are many disciplines represented in this room, when you do want to have a collaboration with somebody in some other discipline than yours, it is, I know this is going to sound not very, very professional, but it's important that you choose your collaborators for whom you have respect and you have a strong and a good communications. It's worth it even to change your approach a little bit to be able to work with somebody for whom you are, because then you're likely to have a much better product. You will be able to work at a higher level if you are, and if you don't. Otherwise, you'll end up with my experience in Microdis, where people lined up outside my door every evening to say how idiotic everybody else was, and that, how important their particular approach was for the problem. So it's important to consider taking on partners that you have respect for. It's important to understand that you will never be a specialist in the discipline that you are trying to trans. You're trying to trans. So you will never be that, and you have to be able to accept that. You have to be, and I can't be an anthropologist, so I will listen to an anthropologist and listen carefully and say, yeah, maybe, why not? Maybe he or she is right. So that kind of humility is important. I would like to end by saying that a big pitfall, to warn against a pitfall of transdisciplinarity, is not to lower the quality of the work. Not to lower the quality of the work. It's true that if you stay in your own discipline, you master the discipline and you can do good work. You can do even better work if you work with somebody from another discipline and get a whole new perspective to it. But this working with another discipline must not lower the quality of your own discipline. This is a very important part of collaborating across disciplines. I'm just trying to check whether there's anything else I want to say before I close. Openness of mind. Not only your openness of mind, but the person you're going to collaborate with, his or her openness of mind. You will be surprised how closed you can be in terms of you can say, yeah, I would love to hear what you have to say about ethics. This is really important. But right now we should do amputations, we should really go ahead and do all these amputations. This can happen because you have your own skill and you want to do what you know how to do best, and you don't want to hear about anything else. So openness of mind is important. I would say that it's even more important than track record. And what do I mean by that? If you choose your collaborator, if you want to say that I want to work with this colleague of mine or that colleague, and he comes from economics or geography or something like that, these are all fantastic fields that can bring a lot to your work. Geography is amazing, the spatial stuff. Weigh the track record of a person against his or her openness. And don't put more weight on the track record. He's published in, the Proceedings of the National Academy, has published in this and that. This is wonderful. That may not be as important. Openness of mind, the ability of that person to, think of other areas, to respect your field and to bring his own or her own approach, that openness of mind is important. So there is a need for some balance when you choose your collaborators. I think the world today, I think that we are going into more and more transdisciplinarity. So, despite the pitfalls and the weaknesses I mentioned, I think the trend is for people to work with different disciplines. I think the structures in academics or in the research world still remains a little bit figé. In French, the word is figé. It's a little bit fixed, rigid. It's a bit rigid in the silos. That's the truth. That's not changed. But I think individuals have become much more open, and certain instruments have been put in place, like the centers, which allow and foster transdisciplinary research. So I think this is on a good path, and welcome to a lovely life in front of you.